Under Article 1868, a contract of agency is created when one person binds themselves to represent another. This grant of authority allows a proxy to negotiate and execute contracts that bind the principal as if they were personally present. For Philippine law students, navigating the risks of this delegated power is a recurring challenge on the bar exam. The examiners frequently test the specific limits of an agent's liability when they act on a principal's behalf. These disputes are settled under the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, where the justices apply the Civil Code to determine exactly where a representative's authority begins and ends. The primary rules for this relationship are found in Title X, Chapter 2 of the new Civil Code, spanning Articles 1884 through 1896. These 13 articles define the agent's obligations from the moment of acceptance to the conclusion of the business. It is a restrictive framework designed to ensure that the agent remains a faithful extension of the principal's will. Article 1884 establishes the baseline. Once an agent accepts the mandate, they are bound to carry it out. Any failure to perform makes the agent liable for the resulting damages suffered by the principal. On this timeline, notice the sudden break at the principal's death, normally extinguishing the agency instantly. However, Article 1884 creates a survival duty. If delay in unfinished business entails danger to the estate, the agent must conclude the transaction. Even a person who declines the agency is not entirely free of obligation. Article 1885 outlines what happens when an offer is explicitly rejected. If the owner has already forwarded goods, the person who declined the agency must observe the diligence of a good father of a family. They are legally required to preserve those goods until the owner can appoint a replacement. Funding the agency is the next link. Article 1886 confirms that while a principal typically provides funds, the contract can stipulate the agent will advance the money, but the law provides a shield for the agent. If the principal becomes insolvent, the agent's obligation to advance those funds is immediately extinguished. By structuring duties around asset preservation, the law ensures the agent is bound to protective actions, whether they have accepted the job, declined it, or are dealing with a bankrupt principal. Article 1887 distinguishes authority, the outward power projected to third parties, from instructions, the principal's internal rules. If an agent acts within public authority but violates private instructions, the contract remains valid, but the agent is personally liable for damages. However, obedience is not absolute. Under Article 1888, an agent is forbidden from carrying out the agency if doing so would clearly result in loss or damage to the principal. For bar exam purposes, that loss must be manifest. It must be clear and certain at the time of execution, rather than a mere difference in opinion regarding market strategy. Article 1889 handles conflicts of interest. If personal interests compete with the principal's, the agent must prefer the principal's interests or face liability for damages. This logic extends to double agency. An agent cannot serve two masters with conflicting interests in the same transaction unless both principals give their informed consent. The result is a constrained form of discretion.
Every decision must be calibrated to benefit the principal while neutralizing the agent's own interests. Under Article 1890, an agent authorized to borrow may lend their own funds at current market rates. But if authorized to lend, they cannot borrow the principal's money without consent, preventing the temptation to set artificially low interest rates. Transparency is mandated by Article 1891. Every agent must render an account of their transactions and deliver everything they received by virtue of the agency to the principal. This accounting duty is so fundamental that the Civil Code declares any contract clause exempting the agent from it to be void. This means any secret profits or commissions an agent collects from third parties during the course of the agency belong legally to the principal. If the agent converts those funds for personal use, Article 1896 applies. The agent is required to pay interest on the money they applied to their own use. Note that a formal demand from the principal is not required for this interest to start. It accrues automatically from the very day the agent diverted the funds. Under Chapter 2, there is no room for financial ambiguity. Any attempt to leverage or conceal the principal's assets creates an immediate interest-bearing debt for the agent. Article 1892 governs delegation. An agent may appoint a substitute unless explicitly forbidden. However, the original agent remains responsible for the substitute's acts if unauthorized, or if they appointed someone notoriously incompetent or insolvent. If the principal prohibited substitution, any acts performed by that substitute are legally void. Furthermore, Article 1893 allows the principal to bring a direct legal action against the substitute for contracted obligations. When a principal uses multiple agents for a single task, Articles 1894 and 1895 establish the default rule of joint liability. This means each agent is only responsible for their portion of the obligation. For these agents to be held solidarily liable, where any one agent is responsible for the full amount, it must be expressly stated in the agreement. Even under solidary liability, an agent is shielded if their fellow representative acted beyond the scope of their authority. The Civil Code tracks the flow of delegated power, ensuring that no subcontract or rogue co-agent can sever the principal's legal reach. In practice, Chapter 2 functions as a comprehensive set of legal boundaries designed to enforce fiduciary loyalty. From the moment an agent considers a mandate through every financial and delegation decision that follows, the law systematically removes the agent's ability to act for their own benefit. To analyze any agency problem on the bar exam, start with a single question. Did the agent put their own interests before the principal's? If they did, you are likely looking at a violation of one of these 13 articles. Identifying that conflict is the first step in determining the agent's liability. This framework governs the agent's side of the contract. In our next episode, we will examine the reverse, the obligations of the principal. These rules ensure the agent remains a loyal representative. Understanding this sequence is key to mastering the complex fiduciary relationship defined by Philippine law.